there seems to be some evidence that peace is breaking out between some theologians and Girard, as if there's a bit of a recognition that there are resources there, quite apart from the theologians like Rowan Williams and James Allison, who really are developing Girardian styles of theology. More broadly, perhaps, slightly more receptive attitude, you think?
Yes, there's a whole line of Catholic thinkers and theologians who've expounded Girard and explored his links with theology. I mean, Michael Kerwin, British Jesuit, as well as James Allison. Grant Kaplan in America has written now quite an important book, which Girard, the unlikely apologist. Girard works in the domain of fundamental theology, which is to say, making theology intelligible, accessible, and persuasive to people who are outside the flock, the church, the age. Now, that seems to me an extremely important idea, and it puts him really in the same league as, I don't know, C.S. Lewis or Chesterton, or maybe, well, of course, Pascal. I come back to Pascal. I'm not sure that Girard won't end up as a sort of 21st century anthropological Pascal, but of course Pascal was already into anthropology in his own way, was he not?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it goes back to this question of what questions theology addresses, and unless I think theology has some sense of what it needs to talk about to look compelling to a wider intellectual world, which is not at all to say theology has to be scrambling on after other disciplines, but unless there's some sense of why it might matter,
yes,
then it's going to be the dialogue of the deaf. I think what Girard therefore does is to lay out a set of anthropological questions in the light of which it's possible to see why theology might matter.
Yes, absolutely. That is
for an apologetic strategy in the most constructive sense. You don't begin simply by marshalling arguments in an empty room.
No, exactly.
You ask what you need to open up about the human world in such a way that theological responses, theological perspectives make sense. You say, so that's why it matters, that's why I believe it.
I recognise myself in those preoccupations, those concerns and those questions, Yes, he's extraordinarily good at that. So there has been a development of his thought. Schwager is extremely important. We'll perhaps come to him more specifically in a minute. There's been more consolidation of what has actually been written and thought. There's been more methodic systematization of it. There have been colloquia. There are a number of books, like in France, there's been a book called Penser la foi chrétienne après René Girard. Now, there's an imposing claim there, isn't there, that Girard actually changes the perspective in which we see the whole of Christian thought and practice. And that's a very powerful book, which is actually quite very followed in France, but it's 20 years ahead of where we are in this country. We're really lagging behind.
Certainly so, yes. I haven't read the book, but I wonder how much it has to say about what Girard makes possible in thinking about the church, because some people have said, frankly, I said a few decades ago, there is just a touch in early to mid-Girard of what I call the liberal Protestant element of, say it and it changes.
Yes.
And what else is there to say about different kinds of...
This is one of his ambiguous profiles. Some people think of him as a traditionalist, who will support Benedict and Regensburg Address and so on and so forth, who, when he was converted, got remarried and had his children baptized in his Methodist wife and so on. So he has a sort of traditionalist profile as well as a liberal Protestant open one. Part of his ambiguity. Church and sacraments, well, thanks to James Allison, I would say, who is the descendant, he inherits that particular mantle from Girard, and in Kaplan, he makes a very interesting case, actually, of the way the church should evolve in order to take account of Girardian insights. So he's creatively taking them and applying them. Now, of course, he's a pressure group for the moment within the church, but there are very central Catholic figures. I mean, Hans Urs von Balthasar is not a secondary theologian, is he? He is reported by his biographer, anyway, to have said, Die Wahrheit Girard's can be integrated into a Christian theology of the cross. Now, he's got the point.
Yes.
And what an explosion that is. There you really begin to see theology from the point of view of anthropology, but by no means reducing it. On the contrary, opening it up and multiplying its accessibility and intelligibility.
Yes, that's right. Balthasar's actual discussion of Girard in Theology is an interesting example of a slightly double-edged response, but fundamentally, I'd say, positive. And at the end, what he says is, well, this is what's not there, but what we've got there is enough to be moving on with. But I think he's looking, as we've been saying earlier, he's looking for something more of a theology of the cross and therefore the resurrection.
Yes.
But I see no contradiction.
No.
But there is a very fruitful area of negotiation, of to and fro here. I mean, some of the Protestants have engaged with this very fruitfully, in my view. Why do they like Girard? Because Girard shows you the anthropological patterns in the gospel text, and he isolates what is really revelatory through them. I suppose it's like a chemical, it's boiling away the water in a way, and you see what the essence of the Spirit is. So they like him for that reason. I mean, he's sometimes compared, but the comparison made is the rediscovery of the Scriptures by the disciples on the Emmaus Road. When Jesus speaks and shows them the patterns. And I think that Girard has something of that quality about it.
I think so. I think that also illuminates the way in which he locates himself very much in that kind of rereading framework in respect to Jewish scripture.
Yeah.
He's very clear that he's not a supersessionist and anti-Semite, and I think that's absolutely right. He says, look, there's a thread here, there's a trajectory which could not conceivably come to its climax in the life and death of Jesus were it not for the way in which this is worked through the medium of the Jewish scriptures. And that's a really important point. I think, for me, part of his importance has been, for me as a theologian, has been looking at the way in which his structure illuminates the Trinitarian and Christological doctrines.
Right.
Because if you think of Christian theology of the Trinity as, among other things, a way of talking about real difference and real convergence, identity without absorption. If you think of the one will, this theology has it, of the persons of the Trinity, the one longing of the persons of the Trinity, as played out in biblical terms in the fact that, to put it very simply, Jesus wants what the Father wants wants what Jesus wants, the Spirit wants what the Father wants, and so on. And that's laid out narratively in the story of the Gospels.
Yes.
And that's one bit of the jigsaw. The other is, as I mentioned a moment ago, the notion that when we talk about the divine and the human in Christ, we're not talking about two things that are in contest.
No.
We're talking about what it is that enables...
Not a tug of war across the line, no.
We're talking about what it is that enables this very specific historical humanity to be the bearer of a new, radically revolutionary desire in human beings, which is for the will of God.
That is the point, isn't it? It's the conversion of the heart of desire. That's what it's about. And I would say that the anti-Girardian expulsion, if you like, but he was expelled really from the community of theologians and theologically minded thinkers, has really modulated and perhaps even converted into something much more positive people who would have spoken like Milbank to start with, you know, I know your thoughts enough to know that I don't like you, kind of thing. It's a little bit like that. And I was saying, well, look, we have something to add. Theology has a voice to add. And what we add is the divine subjectivity. Now, precisely what you're talking about here, which makes your structures, anthropological structures, come alive. And in those terms, you can go right through the whole lot of Christian doctrine, from creation to Revelation to pneumatology, I mean, the whole lot. And what's Tom Wright working on? The last things. So, I mean, you can go through the whole set. And Girard will actually help you. His concepts will help you. His way of thinking will help you. What he can show you in the scriptures will help you. So I would think that that is a very hopeful prospect for the future.
I think it's a deeply creative prospect. I think that if we want to present the Christian doctrinal vision in a way that is generally good news, generally transforming and converting news, we need to say this is what enables us to turn our understanding of human desire and human intentionality inside out. Yes. To deliver it from that imprisonment in destructive mimesis, to expose its murderous irrationality. Actually, no, we have a story, we have a system.
René Girard himself thinks of that destructiveness as the shadow side of a potential that seeks its conversion to the good. That's why I wonder if his theory, which is in the end a theory of human relationalities, isn't the natural ally of Christian theology in the coming century.